And we are live. What's up, everybody? I'm excited about this interview for a lot of different reasons. For those of you that know me or may not know me, I smile a lot. I have a big smile, and behind the big smile is a lot of stuff that I don't want to talk about. So I have with me a licensed therapist, an old friend of mine from way back in the day from the North Carolina State University, Mrs. Janelle Johnson. And she is doing amazing things. She's a wife, mother, and founder of Bridges Family Life Center, a family owned marriage and family therapy practice near Raleigh, North Carolina. She's an award winning trainer, an innovative mental health clinician. She's often sought out for her social justice advocacy regarding intersectionality of albinism, sexism, and racism. She's got a lot of good certifications. She serves on a lot of boards. But what I love most about what Janelle is doing and what she's done is that she has taken her love to help people, and her family's made a business out of it, and she's changing lives through that. So with that being the case, Janelle, welcome to the show. How you living? How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be talking with you. It's been a real long time, so I'm glad to talk with you and your audience about what we're doing around here.
Yeah. So before we get into the nitty gritty, before we get into the questions, everybody that I bring on my show, there's a connection with that person for some way. Janelle and I went to the North Carolina State University together. We were in the same class, obviously, and came in the same. They don't even call it the same thing, African American Symposium. They don't call it that anymore. But just getting to Janelle, I say that because Janelle knew me when I was foolish. Like she knew when I would just say I was gonna do all these great things and I was gonna be this millionaire and I was gonna do all that stuff. And I know she's one of the people that looked at me with the side eye, but it's all good. We're here together, and I'm just excited to be here. But I want to start out the question, or the title of this conversation is, do I need therapy? Now, with everything that's going on globally, everything that's going on in our everyday lives as adult humans, especially if you have to have a different hue of skin, if you're black, it's a whole bunch of stuff. And so I'm going to ask an obvious question to a therapist. Janelle, do I need therapy?
Well, I will start by saying I'm biased by saying this, but I'm also educated by saying this, and the resounding answer is yes. Um, we think that everyone can benefit from therapy. So the word need is kind of, nebulous, it's just depending. But given our current state of the world, I don't even feel questionable about saying need. I think everyone needs therapy right now, based on the stressors that we're experiencing.
Got it. So what made you choose, this line of work?
Long story, but I'll make it short. Um, I am one of those folks that kind of knew early on in life what I wanted to do. So around 13 years old, I had some experiences in my life, in my family, that led me to start thinking about what is this stuff that is going on with us and how can we make it better. Um, and then I had my own personal challenges and experiences of just not understanding other people, not understanding why they did what they did. And it was just this always resounding question of why do people do what they do, and how do they get along with each other? And so I spent all of my life trying to study people to understand it because it didn't come naturally to me. I'm differently wired brain. And so I decided when it was time for me to go to school that I was going to study psychology. I actually took my first psychology class in high school, and I was hooked in. And so I've been studying psychology since I was 15. I'm 34 now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So there's a lot of different types of therapy. that people can take. I'm not even going to show my ignorance by naming the categories. But what type of therapy do you and your company there specialize in? You can talk about, you know, the different therapists that work with you as well.
Okay. So there's different types of therapy, and then there's also different types of license types. So our practice is licensed under the marriage and family therapy umbrella. Marriage and family therapists specialize in the intersection of mental health and relational health. So that's our specialty. So we work with a lot of families, a lot of couples, individuals that come. We're still looking at it from this kind of systems thinking place. There are other folks who are licensed clinical social workers. They're the best at finding the best resources for you in the community. There's LPCs, licensed professional counselors. I think they just changed their title to licensed clinical mental health counselors. They kind of specialize in very, very practical, hands-on, how do I make changes in my behavior at home and at work, um, to help me to accomplish whatever it is that I'm trying to do. There's psychologists and psychiatrists, and so the mental health field is really broad. We have lots of different specialties. Within marriage and family therapy here at Bridges, we do a lot of trauma work. So we specialize in childhood trauma in children and in adults. We also do a lot of perinatal mental health work. That's challenges that arise after you've had children or while you're pregnant. Um, and then we do the basic stuff that everybody else does: depression, anxiety, kind of run of the mill things that people very commonly run into.
Got it. So the common reasons that people will seek out a therapist, and the reason why I wanted to ask you this question, Janelle, is because I'm putting myself in this group of people where it's like, well, I don't really feel like anything is wrong, so I don't need a therapist, right?
Yeah,
So for your clients, the people that you've seen, do you call them clients or patients?
client.
Clients. So for the clients that you see, what are some of the common reasons why people say, "Oh, I need to speak with you"?
Sure. There's lots of reasons. People have all kinds of challenges. For us, as kind of relational mental health uh, specialists, we see a lot of couples. So a lot of people come to us because they're having trouble in their marriage, or they're having trouble in their relationship, um, or they're having trouble connecting with other people. So maybe they have social anxiety, or mild autism, or something like that, where it's kind of getting in the way of them being able to form relationships that they like, or that are healthy for them. We also see a lot of people coming because they are overwhelmed. Overwhelmed is the word that we hear the most, and this is before the pandemic. It's just too much with the children and work, and I'm working 50 and 60 hours a week, and I don't have time to slow down, and I don't know how to take care of myself. And all of a sudden I just, had a breakdown, like I can't do this anymore. We're seeing a whole lot of that. The challenge of overworking is something that we help clients manage all the time.
Got it. Now you mentioned that as a grown up human, as I'm striving to be, that the overwhelm part of it, that is huge. So I can imagine that people, and I know, Sierra and I multiple times we've looked at each other like, you trying to run? Me too. Like, let's let's go together.
Yeah.
So there's that. So I want people watching, I want people listening to understand, like, these are all things that you can seek out a therapist for. And it's okay. I think that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest reasons I wanted to talk to you is because back and I'll kind of talk about this question a little bit, like it's usually a stigma on somebody that goes and sees a therapist, right?
Yeah.
Versus if I had a personal trainer and maybe I'm not out of shape, but maybe I just want to, maybe I just want to relive the glory days of the 8 pack. I don't know, like whatever it is. And so you can use you didn't have to laugh that hard, but you can use therapy to help like with your mental health and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
if and I want to ask this question, I want to relate it to how people can go to work with you and businesses like you.
Hmm.
If I feel like something is off, like how does that process start? Or even if I don't, even if I see this interview, I hear this interview and I'm like, yeah, I think I might want to see a therapist. Like, what does that intake process look like? And what can they expect?
Sure. Um, well, first, I just want to commend anyone who says to themselves, I think I want to seek a therapist, because that is always the first hurdle, is that, hey, I could really benefit from some assistance. I tell people all the time, if you have something going on with your body, you don't question, oh, I should never go see a doctor. I would never do that. But therapy is about your brain, and everyone has a brain, and there's stuff that's happening up there that a therapist is trained to help you rewire. Um, so it's worth at least getting checked out from time to time, just to make sure, just like we go for a physical, just to make sure everything is all right. Um, so once you jump over the stigma hurdle, then what you can do is research. And I always recommend that people go with word of mouth first. It can be something as simple as, blasting out to your social media network, hey, anybody know any good therapists in the area? You will get flooded. So start there. You can also look online and you can say, um, therapist that works with marriage or therapist that works with depression. And usually Psychology Today is going to pop up. So that's a great way to find someone who kind of specializes in your area, or you're looking for someone that takes your insurance. Then you can look that way. You'll call the therapist, either the therapist or their front desk person, who, depending on how large they are, will walk you through what to do next. They'll talk to you about your challenges. They'll set you up with an appointment or a consultation, and then you go from there.
Simple. Simple. And I like the analogy you used, like, hey, you go get a physical every year. You should go get a mental checkup. And as you know, studying the brain and studying psychology, we have more data and more stuff thrown at our brains than at any time in history. So
For
that
sure.
exercise and the calories that our brains are burning on a daily basis are, the most in history. So that's important. And I want to touch on this right now. As of this recording, we're going through a global pandemic, which is a real thing. People, mask up, be safe, like
Be safe.
seriously. But virtual therapy versus in-person therapy, Janelle, if I don't feel comfortable going in person, is virtual therapy an option? And if so, is it a good option?
That's a great question. I'm glad that you asked it. There's been multiple research studies done that prove that virtual therapy is just as effective as in-person therapy. So we want to dismiss all the myths that virtual therapy is not okay. It is perfectly okay to do, and you can still get the same benefits as going in person. Now, getting virtual therapy is actually pretty easy these days, because almost all therapists, especially if they're in any kind of area that has a hotspot, we've all switched to virtual therapy in order to provide our services. Bridges always provided virtual therapy, but we had kind of a hybrid model. So the majority of our clients were coming in person, and now we're only doing virtual. So It's pretty easy to access. It's kind of the same process that I explained to you earlier. It's just someone will set you up with a virtual appointment instead of an in-person one. There's only a few cases where virtual therapy is not recommended, and it's in these kind of high intensity cases where someone's experiencing suicidal behavior, different things like that, where it's recommended that those people are seen in person. But everybody else is perfectly fine.
Got it. I love it. Virtual therapy. Who'da thunk it, man? Like, so you're not laying on, like, you just the old pictures of you laying on the psychologist's couch. You're laying on your couch, maybe, or maybe you're on a
Maybe.
Zoom call or whatever in your
Yep.
office or whatever. But I think that it's really important because let's just use this opportunity to say that stigma, like, throw it away. Every single person needs therapy after this foolishness we're going through right now.
Right.
Everybody, every
Right.
single person. This is unprecedented. As far as what we're going through. When is it going to end? We don't know. And then I want to talk about because you mentioned how you've been sought out for your social justice advocacy.
Yeah.
As far as everything that's been going on with how Black people are treated in America, but especially, I call it the racist trifecta with Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd happening in like that condensed amount of time.
Right.
For the Black folks, So if you're not Black, I still want you to watch, but I still want you to pay attention. But especially if you're Black, I think, and I'm not speaking for everybody, I'm just speaking for the people that I know personally.
Yeah.
We have issue with seeking therapy. So
Mhm.
what would you say directly to, let's say, a Black couple, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they've been married or whatnot. What would you say to them if they were thinking about going therapy to help them get over that hump?
Well, um, I would say to a Black couple specifically, which is one of the main reasons we started Bridges, was Black families. I would say to them that racism and systemic racism strategically put things in place to ensure that your family would not work.
Mm,
And so, if you want to make sure that you have the tools that you really need to make generational change that will last, that will change the trajectory of your family line, then it starts with you. And why not? Why not get help so that you're not having to figure this stuff out on your own? People like me have researched human behavior and family dynamics for many years. And so it's just like going to school or, like you said, getting a personal trainer. You want to get or having a business coach. The idea is I want to get a jump start on this. I don't want it to take my entire life for me to figure out how to live in this marriage or how to teach my children the right things to be mentally and emotionally, relationally well. I want to get a jump on that and be able to move through that in a year as opposed to my entire life, and avoid all the pitfalls and damages that could come with that.
yeah, and you just said something right there towards the end when you were saying I would rather, handle this in a year than spend my whole life. That speaks volumes because a lot of times we go through and sometimes it seems like it's a cloud over our heads or it's a
Yeah.
funk that we're going through where it's like we don't know why. We don't know
Yeah.
why. I want to ask you this too, marriage and family therapy. So Janelle, if I got crazy children, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. If I have children that I don't think that they act just the way that they should, do you all do that type of therapy?
That's our bread and butter. We do couples therapy a lot, but we advertise ourselves as a family therapy practice. So we get tons of kids. We get tons of couples who need to do parenting work. And so we are really interested in that two generational approach to treatment. Um, and even when we do training, we're looking at 2 layers of training. We want to train leaders with employees. Like we have this approach to things that we find works more effectively in making systems change. And when you're talking about children who are acting out or misbehaving, there's so many things that could be happening, but we put too much pressure on children, and we don't recognize that the responsibility lies with the parents. How can you help your children to learn new ways of thinking and being, learn how to be emotionally intelligent? How can you teach emotional intelligence when you don't have it for yourself? You want to develop those skills so that you can not only teach them, but model it, because children learn from modeling much more than they learn from you telling them to do something.
All right. Okay. All right. But how old do the kids have to be?
Well, we serve all ages. So remember when I was telling you we do perinatal mental health work here? We have specific training for that. Not a lot of marriage and family therapists do, but that's where we can start with 0, because what we're doing is teaching you how to bond and form attachment with your infant. So all the way 0 and up, we're able to affect change in a family.
So I got this 10-year-old, right? That but no, seriously, my 10-year-old is the perfect combination of the most extreme part of me and my wife. Like it is.
Oh, those are so fun.
No, no, not all the time. But and the reason why I asked that is, for one, I'm thinking about. So after this,
Mhm.
we're probably going to talk about that. But
Yes.
I watched a video with my kids about, how parents should interact with their kids and all that stuff. And so I'm sitting there. I did it because I wanted them to be quiet, and I didn't want them to watch whatever they wanted to watch because they was getting on my nerves. So I said, y'all are gonna watch something educational. And so I said, we're gonna look at, and I think the video was something like what parents should do when their kids act out or something like that. Just something. And so I turned it on, and I'm sitting there looking at it. And then it's like, dang, this dude's talking to me, not the kids.
Yep.
And I'm like, and so the kids are like, well, daddy, why don't you do that? And I'm like, you know what? I need to do better. My bad. Like I need to do better. So I think for
Yeah.
parents watching, for those individuals that are that want to be great parents, right? That want to
Yeah.
be better. I think that you should definitely seek out a marriage and family therapy. Now, I want to ask this question before we get you out of here, because now these questions ain't on the screen because I just thought of them. So,
Yeah.
if you're a therapist, and I
Mhm.
consider you my friend too, so
Yeah.
if it's a issue of the older parents, like the grandparents, do
Mhm.
y'all do that too? Like
Yep.
the
We do all of that. That's what family therapists do. We like I said, we change systems, and we have spent our time in our education studying family systems over generations. We have a tool called a genogram where we help people analyze their family tree from a mental health and relational
mm,
health perspective. Like that's what marriage and family therapists do. We look at the big picture. It's one of the reasons why we get sought out at Bridges for our social justice advocacy, because we have this systemic lens where we can look at things from this big place and boil it down to how it affects the individual and how the individual affects the whole system. And so it works really well when helping people manage things like racism in the workplace, and trauma that happens on the job or what have you. So
that's awesome, because there's a saying going around that these grandparents ain't the same grandparents that we had growing up.
yeah, yes, it's so true, and it's not, and that's not a lie. It's really the trend that we're seeing. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
Um, and for communities of color, it's kind of it's kind of sad, honestly. it's part of what helped us to manage stress. And so now that our generation, millennials, we don't have that as previous generations had. We're seeing kind of a mental health crisis for us as a result.
Whew. Well, look at that. Look, go to bridgesflc.com. Seek out. We could do everything virtually. You don't have to worry about catching the Rona, going anywhere. But
Right.
definitely check out everything that Janelle has going on. And for those watching, if you have any questions, put it in the comments, and we'll try to get some knocked out before. But I think before we let Janelle go, but I think one of the most important things that people are starting to see, Janelle, is that we can take control of our mental health in a lot of ways. and
Yes.
and so that's something else that I think in the just and again, I'm just speaking from my experience and what I've heard and growing up, a lot of things, it's kind of like your physical health. You can impact that. You can lose weight, you can bring your blood pressure down by moving your feet and
Yeah.
moving the plate back. But like with mental health, it's kind of like you just kind of got what you got. And that's it. But that is
Yeah.
not wrong. We have a question there. Are they looking for social workers? See,
Oh
got
man,
and that's
we
my
are actually looking to hire. So go online and that website that he had up, bridgesflc.com, and send in a request and send in your resume.
see. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and put it on blast. That's my baby sister that said that. That's my family talking about.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
If you live in North Carolina,
yeah, she does.
send us a note.
I
We'll see if
always
you're a good
told my
fit.
younger siblings to shoot their shot. Gotta shoot your shot just to see. But any other questions, let us know. In the meantime, between time, I got Janelle for 3 more minutes. Listen, so in order to do this, because I want to do therapy, I'm going to be open about this. I
Yeah.
have tried talking to myself. It works sometimes, but not all the time.
Hmm.
But I want to do therapy, not just because I don't feel like stuff is wrong. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I don't,
Hmm.
but I do know that there's another level that I can go to. As
Exactly.
a dad, as a husband, I know there's a different level I can go to. So I want to do that, but I also want to get my children in here. I got a 3-year-old; he's not ready yet, but my 7-year-old and my 10-year-old.
Hmm.
Yep, we
Yeah.
we need to talk, and
Hmm.
because they're good kids, right? They're good kids. We're blessed. We don't have they put the cat in the microwave, or they're bullying people or anything. We don't have that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank goodness. But
Hmm.
that's something that I would like to have a conversation about. And for those of you watching, that I want you to at least, at the very least, do like Janelle said and start researching, start looking to see, like, is this something that I could use? Is this something that I could be? It's not something that you have to, go to therapy every day or anything like that. How often do you have like a package where it's like, hey, 10 consultations or something like that? Or is it kind of like as you go type thing?
It is as you go. If you're paying, if you're using insurance, um, which I strongly encourage people to do. Mental health professionals fought long and hard to make sure that your insurance would cover your mental health, and that's only been within the last 15 years that that's been the case. So use your insurance. Um, but if you can't find a therapist that you like, that's not a part of your network, pay out of pocket. It's not super expensive. Um, but you come once a week generally. Based on your needs, you might come twice a week, but that's pretty rare. Some people come every other week, especially if they're paying out of pocket and their needs aren't particularly intense. Um, recognize that a diagnosis may or may not happen. We are medically allied professionals, so that's the only reason insurance can pay us. There are mental health things that are diagnosable, but if you're working with the right therapist, they'll help you understand what those things mean, and they'll also help you understand how to fit it into your framework and into your life. We're as Black therapists, we're very careful to kind of walk the line of using our DSM to diagnose people, but also recognizing this wasn't necessarily built for Black people. So it's good to have someone that is aware of those types of things to help you work that out too.
I love it. I love it. Janelle Johnson of Bridges. We appreciate you being on. And again, you can check out bridgesflc.com to learn more information about Janelle and her company. Until next time, everybody, we will see y'all at the top, not from the top. God bless. Take care.